It seems since Bridget's release, everything relating to the character has been a war zone of people eager to accept Bridget as trans, people confused with the choice Bridget makes, people who are unaware of the whole situation or don't care, and actual bigots. I think the main issue stems from what people understood of the character and wanted out of them and what was done with it. To make sure we're all on the same page, I'll catch you up. Bridget was born into a small town in Britain with the superstition that twins of the same gender are a bad omen. So to prevent harm from coming to Bridget, their parents raised them as a girl. After this, they set out to become a successful bounty hunter as a man and prove the town's superstition wrong. Alright, cool, now we add the justification as to why this boy is cute. Fast forward to present day, fan favorite Bridget is back. And the arcade mode brings up new lore, and here's where the problem begins. The arcade will show you different scenes depending on your performance, meaning some players will have different experiences than others depending on skill issues. Walk with me down this path. You're playing Halo 4 for the first time after being a longtime Halo fan. By this point, you're quite adept, so you dive straight into legendary difficulty. You beat the game and get a coolio cutscene, and at the end you see Chief's face. Neat! Alright, GG's, see you in Halo 5, and you pack it up and go. Keep walking with me, we're getting somewhere. Now, this time you're a fan, but you're no MLG no-scope god or anything. You just want to have a good time and play the game for God's sake. So you play through on normal. You beat the game and you get a coolio cutscene. Neat! You tell your friends or whatever, and one mentions finally being able to see Chief's face after all those years, the tease he is. What? When did that happen? It was at the ending? I didn't see that. And this creates a divide. Games are no strangers to locking true endings or the good route behind skill or being perceptive. But when it's important to the character and as hot a topic as their identity, I don't know, you'd want that to be more accessible. And gamers naturally want to be rewarded for good play with good and true endings. Maybe the person who played through Halo Normal is now inspired to get that final cutscene and plays on Legendary. But the one who finished on Legendary doesn't need to. They've seen it and have no reason to throttle it back down to normal for a subpar ending. You see where we are now? If not, we'll walk back down a different lane. With Bridget's arcade mode, if you play through flawlessly on the hardest difficulty, you end up missing a different ending. The ending in which Bridget states that they are a girl. That one happens for losing a round, i.e. failing, which is where the "that was a bad ending" argument comes from. Biken goes mad in one of her bad endings from an older game, and that didn't seem to persist. And without the cutscene, the last statement Bridget makes on their gender is correcting Mr. Dickinson that they are a boy. I mean, you also get a different cutscene with Kai, where he says you should be true to who you are. And from that perspective, they continue being a successful bounty hunter despite his village's superstitions. At least that's how I take it with my worldview and life experiences. Now, I heard there's heavy subtext about transgender themes. If you don't know about those, you wouldn't pick up on them. As LGBTQ+, you do kind of have to pick up on under-the-table bones your media decides to throw at you, whether they mean to or not, because otherwise we don't get a lot of representation. Someone who's gay can relate to gay undertones in totally straight buds, spending every waking hour with each other, ignoring their wives, while a straight person could just see the same bros even kiss and say with complete confidence nothing is between them besides their friendship. But why lock such important information behind performing poorly, or even lock it away at all? If you want to cut out the ambiguity, put that shit in the end no matter what. But because there are differences in what is presented, it only muddies the waters. It's exasperating. Yeah, subtlety is nice, but some things have to be blatantly stated, otherwise people won't pick up on it. The thing that matters the most in game storytelling is what you see happen on your screen. Second to that is any lore you read in the game, and after that, maybe outside supplemental materials like trailers or musicals. Which is why I hate this trend of diversity balance patches, where a dev or author will mention on their Twitter, "Oh yeah, that background character we gave 3 lines, she's trans," and just let all the clout roll in. So what? Elaborate on that in the material, because if I don't hate myself for having a Twitter, I wouldn't have known. Yeah, it was a nice detail Bridget now has the androgynous symbol on their habit hoodie, but they're not androgynous anymore if they're just another generic cute girl. To clarify, I'm not too upset with Bridget being trans, or trans characters, or trans people. Testament was fine. Trans rights. What throws me off is the 180 in Bridget's storyline where she decides the role she was groomed into against her will is okay, actually. While trans women now have an albeit messy representation, it was at the cost of representation of another very small group, one that doesn't even have a unifying name I'm aware of. Femboys. I relate a lot to Bridget personally, and being forced into a role I didn't quite vibe with. I found solace in someone who likes cute things like skirts and stuffed animals, but was still undoubtedly a man. I myself enjoy cross-dressing in private, and hell, I'd do it in public if we didn't live in a society where I had to fear bodily harm for the act of cross-dressing. But now I lost that in Guilty Gear because I can't really relate to anyone else the way I did with Bridget. And now that they aren't there for me anymore, I don't find the same joy in playing Bridget or even Guilty Gear for how brashly this happened. But this is the same series in which a burger won over Ramlethal from the destruction of human race, so maybe I was naive to think they'd handle this with tact, seeing as they also made the classic blunder of acting feminine equals being a girl. Speaking of tact, really? In a goddamn arcade mode, with only a few minutes of dialogue? Bridget has been gone for years, and they just speed ran this monumental moment in their life with their fucking idol animation rocks on in the background like this isn't happening. Is it even possible to have done this respectfully in the context of a fighting game arcade mode? Guilty Gear went and had its own anime for the story it considered important enough. The thing about LGBTQ plus issues is that it's a spectrum, and it's not a catch-all group despite how I've been referring to them in the video. A gay character like Venom probably won't resonate with someone who's lesbian, or maybe his sick pool table skills are what draws her in which case it's for a different reason, because everyone has personal boxes to tick. And to the ones way in the back who snuck into this TED Talk saying, dude, whatever, they're just fictional characters. I'd like to remind you how someone called the legendary roster of Marvel vs. Capcom a group of functions, and how silly that sounded. I choose characters that have stories and struggles I resonate with, and you choose characters with an 8-way dash. We are not the same. Whether or not Bridget is a girl, I just wish they didn't pussyfoot around it, hiding it behind alternative endings or character bios, and were just straight up. Or made a new character that was trans. That'd be a lot cooler than mucking up what was one of the OG fanboys for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe this whole thing is a cry for help because Bridget's girl cock is making me question my homosexuality.